Welcome to the ANEW Insight Podcast, empowering and inspiring your journey to optimal health. Hosted by Dr. Supatra Tovar, clinical psychologist, registered dietitian, fitness expert, and author of Deprogram Diet Culture. Rethink your relationship with food, heal your mind, and live a diet-free life. I follow my guests' journey to optimal health, providing you with the keys to unlock your own wellness path. Tune in and evolve with us. Welcome back. We're back for the second half of our interview with amazing registered dietitian, certified eating disorder specialist, intuitive eating counselor, haes practitioner, Robin Goldberg. Robin gave us some really invaluable insight into her extensive background and eating disorder treatment philosophy. I cannot wait to pick her brain some more. Welcome back, Robin.
Thank you.
So we are in the age of Ozempic. The song pops up into everyone's head, I am sure. I am really disturbed in a lot of ways. I mean, I think that these medications are very useful for people who absolutely need them, but I'm starting to see a lot of misuse. I have been a part of several groups on Facebook where people talk about their journeys with these weight loss medications. And I see a lot of issues and problems when it comes to eating disorders and disordered eating around these medications. So I really wanted to focus on this so that maybe we can find ways that we can help people navigate through what we're seeing with these medications. But if you give kind of a general overview of what you might be seeing in your practice or what you might be seeing kind of just anecdotally through the news, what's happening?
So, what's happening in my office is I'm seeing people that are younger and younger on these medications and that are having side effects that are not even discussed. Kidney stones, like reoccurring kidney stones. I know we read a lot about stomach paralysis. Now, the latest blindness, which could be temporary, like that scares me out of everything because I'm almost legally blind since I was a kid. So I'm always with like my vision, my glasses, my contacts. But, the big thing with all of these, the GLPs and the non-GLPs, is malnutrition.
Yes.
So that I would say, I mean, everything is not ideal that's happening with it, but malnutrition, where you're consuming way less than what your body needs, and you're finding, I'm really tired. I can't stand in the shower. I'm having tremors. I'm constipated. I feel like I'm 100. My bodies have aches and pains. Like you described, I think they can serve a great purpose. You have type 2 diabetes to be able to reduce the A1C. But I know many people that are living on them indefinitely, like, oh, I'm going on a vacation. I have a high school reunion to be able to shed, quote unquote, a few pounds. And I was actually discussing with someone the other day that was who is a provider actually, and who is on the medication, and was telling me that she has all these medical issues that have come up. And I said, well, I don't think you would want to be on this forever. You can't be. And she was like, Robin, it is worth for me having all these medical issues because I do not want to find out what it would be like to have my body rebound and regain that weight back and then some. So it saddens me because, yes, they might feel more confident internally, but also not talking about like chunks of hair are falling out. I'm finding that I don't feel relieved when I'm taking a poop. I'm not really going to the bath. I mean, it's sort of like just the intake is less for many people than what a newborn is consuming.
Yes.
That's a problem.
Yes, I had a client, thankfully she went off of it very quickly, but she was maybe getting like 800 calories in a day. She had the same issues. She was weak. She was irritable. She couldn't think straight. It was just awful. And I think it's really difficult because you're feeling this way, but you're not hungry. And that is very scary because your body wants to be telling you that it needs nutrition. And that's what a lot of these hunger hormones will be doing for you. They're telling you need nutrition. But people who say that they are in larger bodies or they have type 2 diabetes and they do need this medication, they've gotten to that place more often than not because of their diet. So let's start there. What usually leads people to gain unwanted weight in terms of nutrition? What are the culprits usually?
Weight cycling is
Yes.
number one. You could weight cycle eating salads. You could weight cycle eating burgers. As I was just talking with someone yesterday, it's not always what they're eating, but why they're eating
Yes.
too. And I think for many that have gone down that path time and time again, they like I always use the example Oprah Winfrey. You can have all the chefs, trainers, dietitians, people at your fingertips. But if you're not willing to change your thought process, it's all going to be temporary. And that's the piece too. Like our bodies changes as we age. They're not meant to remain the same. We get a little grayer, we have a little more cellulite, we get more wrinkle. It's just what it is. So to expect that you're going to look as you did 5 years ago, 10 years ago is unrealistic. But I think too, when a person has gotten to the point that they've dieted and tried so many things time and time again, maybe it's commercials like you're saying this morning. Well, I was on the Peloton hearing the Ozempic commercial. It happens. But I think too, there's a pressure from maybe their provider, like, okay, you've tried for X amount of time, or they're getting opinions from their children, their spouses. And also, even just there's this like envy. I'm listening to a client's like, "Oh yeah, I was with these moms and we're all talking about food and everybody's on a GLP but me. I think maybe I should go on one too." There's that FOMO of it
Mhm.
too. So I think different circumstances that get the person to essentially like drink the Kool-Aid.
Absolutely. I would definitely say dieting, weight cycling, and seriously, if a high protein, super duper high animal protein, low carb diet was the key to weight loss, everybody, most everybody would be skinny by now. We have a lot of really, really controversial dietary advice that may provide some relief in the short term, but really aren't effective in the long term. So you see people going on these very strict, high protein, low carb diets that are unsustainable. And that's what creates the weight cycling. In addition, you have so many other influences like ultra processed foods. I'm a person who doesn't like to vilify foods. I think that, all foods fit. We have a spectrum of foods. But when you look at the engineering of ultra processed foods, they hijack your hedonic centers and it makes it very difficult for you to stop eating once you've started eating those foods. You have diet culture influences, people really kind of looking at the ideal celebrity and trying to emulate that. All of these can lead to that weight cycling of weight loss, more weight gain, weight loss, and subsequent weight gain. Go
I
ahead.
also just wanted to say not all foods work for each person, because I know for many of us that are non-diet approach clinicians, we would come from this quote unquote all foods fit model, but not all foods work for each person.
Yes.
And I think instead of like blaming or villainizing a specific food or food group, there's many reasons. Maybe a person has a history of trauma and they're eating as a way to soothe and protect themselves. Maybe they have a metabolic condition. Maybe they're on different psychotropic medications. We don't know what's going on with someone.
Yes, absolutely, and that's actually why I went in to get my clinical psychology doctorate after I got my master's in nutrition because I really wanted to delve into all of those other factors that lead people down a road towards disordered eating or eating disorders. So, what do we do for people who are on these medications and they're maybe getting 800 to like 1,000 calories a day? How would you help somebody increase their nutritional uptake so that they're not experiencing like that, like extreme anxiety, panic, fatigue, all of those really negative effects?
Well, I think it's explaining to them just the fundamentals of that. Just if you were bedridden, and I rarely speak about calories in my practice, but I can say I talk about if you were bedridden, just what our bodies need to be able to have your brain function, your heart, your liver, your kidneys, and really understanding that's without taking into consideration their activity, a stress factor, if they have COVID, if they have a cold, if they're going through chemotherapy, and how undernourishing themselves is actually doing more harm than good and slowing their metabolism
Yeah.
down. So your body doesn't know if you're in this place of famine or if I'm quote unquote on a diet. And each time it's like I always like to quote Evelyn Tribole, the co-author of Intuitive Eating. She has a great quote that dieting is like getting a haircut. What does that mean? I get a haircut, I schedule my appointment a month later. How come? Because my hair is growing back and then some. And that's literally what happens the more that we restrict and the more that we diet. And then the weight cycling happens, that weight comes back at an accelerated level.
Exactly. So we give them that education, and then what if they're just not, quote, able to eat more?
Well, I think oftentimes too, it's finding options that a person feels like they can be open to trying. But I think with this, it really comes down to them establishing trust and a rapport with me, with you, whomever they're sitting with. It's not a 1, 2, 3 model. I mean, I might be talking about this for multiple weeks, but I think too, it's for them really being able to put any kind of like body shift on the back burner because if they're finding they're having a problem existing in day-to-day life, to me, that's the pressing issue that they would want to address as opposed to putting on a different pair of jeans.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I will concur with that for sure. We're also seeing, and this is shifting a little bit because a lot of these compounding pharmacies are either having to close or they're having to alter their formulations because the shortage is no longer there. I see on a lot of these Facebook groups, people very confused about the shots that they're getting from these compounding pharmacies. They're coming in like weird colors. They don't really understand what's in them. How do we help people navigate through all of that mess?
I mean, there's a whole underground world to this. I think it's the gray market is what it's called. And I mean, people that are purchasing these medications not from their providers, off label, where it's affordable. And I think honestly, it's just going to get worse and worse. And you know this as well as I do. You can't help someone get to their bottom. Maybe their bottom is something scary happens to them. Maybe they're having an allergic reaction, they're having a medical issue, but it's everyone's on their own journey and has to get to a point where it's like, this is not the place for me. And especially when you're getting it from another country or a random website, people go through these extreme measures to try to fall into what society states is an ideal body shape or size. And it's like I
Yes.
always like to describe you wouldn't ask a Chihuahua to look like a Great Dane, just like genetically. The
Even
twin studies
if
show
they
this.
feel like a Great Dane, they can't look like one.
Yeah, well, look, you wouldn't ask. There's like twin studies that show this. Like, can eat the same thing, and there's no guarantee that you're gonna look like this other person. It's just like our genetics are what overrides so much of this.
Absolutely. So I would say try to obtain your medication from your doctor, if at all possible, and be very wary of these compounding pharmacies. We just don't really know. I mean, there have been reports of people getting insulin instead of the medication and going into a coma and having really adverse outcomes. So we have to be really careful about where we're getting our medications. And it certainly says a lot about the pressure that comes from diet culture if people are willing to kind of take that chance and not really know what they're getting in terms of their medication. A lot of people also don't know and really don't understand the medication itself. And they don't understand that we actually make these hormones naturally in our body: GLP, GIP, PYY. Can you help people understand how to maybe boost these hormones in their body naturally? Like what foods are effective for that, and what kinds of lifestyle interventions may help to boost that?
Well, to just respond differently to your question, I always like to explain to clients part of having a body is that you will have cravings. That is normal. There are times that you will have a bigger hunger, bigger appetite. Other times you have a lesser hunger, a lesser appetite. And we trust our body will make up the difference for it at the next meal. So I just wanted to start off with that. Similarly to what you were referring to before, I'm someone that really does not say like, "Oh, eat this because this will happen." It seems very diet culture, but kind of like we were talking about before, for example, being able to have like real food. Like, "Oh, I'm going to have in the morning my eggs and my toast and fruit." Like I'm having real food versus, "Oh, I'm grabbing a shake or a bar or freeze dried fake food." I mean, essentially, like having real food, I think is important with helping with the production of these hormones. And the other thing, too, is not skipping meals, not going long durations without eating. And I can't emphasize enough that like caffeine is not water. You know,
What?
all these drinks that are with your Splenda, xylitol, stevia, like it's altering, first of all, your taste, your satiety level, needing something to be sweeter and sweeter. I mean, you're like biochemically shifting how your body would just organically respond. Um, so I'm not saying not to drink them, but also to be real, where it's like, okay, I'm having water. And you might say, well, I don't like water, Robin. It's bland, it's boring. Well, I could put lemon, lime, and oh, well, what if I'm putting Crystal Light? I'm putting my xylitol sweetener. It's because how they've trained themselves. So that's like another problem that I see with people that are so dependent on any food or beverage putting these fake sweeteners on. And that to me
Mhm.
is an issue too.
Absolutely. And I've been doing a little bit more deep diving on just how our body produces GLP-1, and starches are actually a big proponent in increasing our GLP production, as well as eating at certain times of the day. And a lot of people, especially when they're dieting, they don't eat breakfast. That's
Right.
the one meal that they will skip. And that's actually when you can boost GLP production the most, is by eating in the morning, eating a breakfast and usually something starchy.
And that's why it's
Also,
called breaking the fast.
exactly. And it really doesn't have to be like 8 a.m. in the morning. I mean, if people are not hungry, I think it's very important that they're listening to their body and that they're eating, but you can kind of alter and shift your circadian rhythms, especially if you decide not to eat in the morning when you're hungry. And I think that's really important for people to understand that. And we don't tell them what to eat, but certainly when you look at the science, whole natural foods help that production the best, help your digestion the best, help alter and fundamentally change your gut
I
microbiome.
was just going to say a microbiome. Exactly. Because especially as we age, it changes because we're not having enough variety, diversity. So you might find, oh, I'm gassy, I'm bloated. It's like we want to have different food choices to help maximize our digestion and any type of GI feeling that we would experience.
Exactly. So I think that's a way that we can help people navigate if they are on these medications is really giving them the education that they may need as far as what foods will help their gut microbiome the best, help boost their own GLP, especially if they're people that don't want to be on this for life. A lot of people, they may go on that thinking, I'm on the magic pill, I can stay on it for life, but they might not be able to sustain that either financially or physiologically. And so, if they have eaten a certain dietary pattern before and say it's containing a lot more of these artificial sweeteners, a lot of ultra processed foods, maybe they're more really heavy into animal protein, they're going to have a different gut microbiome. And if they don't change that while they're on the medication, itself and they go off of it and they go back to that same dietary pattern, the same result will happen. And I think just understanding that these are not magic pills or magic injections is the key. Would you agree?
150%. I think so many people I speak with, providers and clients before they come to me, is like, I don't need to make changes with my nutrition. I'm on this injectable, but it's like you have to be able to change not just, your mind. I mean, choices, like you said, too.
Yes. What are the potentials for those who don't have disordered eating or eating disorders when they go on these medications to actually develop disordered eating or eating disorders? And how does that kind of transition into something like that?
I want to make sure I understood your question. So you were asking for someone that goes on a medication that does not have an eating disorder, what could potentially happen?
Yes.
Well, I think many might be averse to different foods. It's like, oh, it just has turned me off. They have specific preferences, or many people I've seen, they have chronic nausea and they're just eating whatever they can consume. So they've developed different biases regarding various foods too. And somewhere along the way, they're not getting all the vitamins and minerals, let alone calories that they're needing too. And they're becoming fearful. Well, maybe not in the beginning fearful, but it can turn into it of these different foods because they feel like that's making them have a queasy stomach. It's contributing to them not being interested in eating, or they're lacking social plans and they're canceling because like, oh, there's not going to be anything on the menu I can eat. They're not open to being curious around food.
Yes. So, how do you help clients that may either have an eating disorder and then have it be exacerbated on this medication, or someone that's developed it while on this medication? How do you help people navigate out of that?
I think first and foremost, and with some of these people, I've heard them say, "Oh, my doctor has now changed me to Zepbound," and oh, okay, I'm not nauseous. But no, I don't need to work in X, Y, and Z in my diet. And I find it's important for me to explain the reasons it would be helpful to be able to work X, Y, and Z. Like as you were speaking before about carbohydrates with boosting GLP production, I'll say, well, you know what? You do need carbohydrates for energy. We don't obtain energy from protein and from fat. And if we could get all the vitamins and minerals we needed from one specific food or food group, there wouldn't be a wide array of food choices out there. So again, explaining that to
Yes.
clients.
Well, I do want to touch on, we were going to talk about picky eating, and that also is something that can develop when you're on these medications. But how do you help people, say, with ARFID, and explain for people what, if they don't know what ARFID is, or if they become a picky eater on this medication, what are some strategies that they can employ to help widen their food choices?
So ARFID's avoidant restrictive food intake disorder. It's known as the quote unquote picky eater. It was recognized in the DSM February of 2023, and it's not pertaining to weight. It could be texture, sensory. Perhaps they've had some sort of trauma or incident with a various food or food group. And I think those that are on these different medications, I have not personally had someone who's developed arfID from being on it. They maybe were picky eaters before going on it, or even seeing kids, tweens, adults that have arfID. I mean, really, the way that I help them, there's a lot of exposure therapy. It could be starting out and just walking down the bread aisle of the store. Maybe it's not even touching the bread. Or I was listening to a client the other day, and he was like, "Okay, Robin, I held the cauliflower in the house and I was chatting with the cauliflower." I was like, "Fantastic." So I think the first thing is really being able to rate, like, what their level of fear and openness is to trying any of these foods, or even just like being in the environment or space of it. Versus, it's not about sneaking a food in to your diet. It's being able to be like, well, what would it be like once I can get to this point of like taking a little bite? Maybe let's talk about how it's prepared or what you could put on it. So, yeah, it's definitely a very lengthy journey to get to that point. But I think also there's many adults I see that have had ARFID for many years before it was diagnosed, as opposed to with kids that have more recent diagnoses, where I think the longer we do something, the more entrenched we are in those behaviors and habits.
Yes, and I believe too, ARFID can be a little bit more prevalent in the autism spectrum population as
Yeah.
well because
Yeah.
of the sensory issues. It's heartening to know that to see that you haven't necessarily seen ARFID developing out of the use of these weight loss
Yeah.
medications, but certainly if they were picky before, it's going to be exacerbated when they're on these medications. Ramen, there's so much I didn't get to ask you. It's like crazy. I'm looking at my questions. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to have you back on. But before we
Thanks.
close out the second half, please tell people how they can find you. Please tell people how they can get your book. And also
Thank
tell
you.
us a little about your podcast.
Thank you. My website is askaboutfood.com. I have on there information about me and my private practice. I am in person as well as virtual. I have links on my book on there. My book comes in audio, ebook, paperback. I have a free online course for parents, partners, and caregivers that have a loved one struggling, called Your Recovery Resource. It was developed over COVID with my colleague Becca Clegg, who's an eating disorder therapist in Atlanta. And it was developed for, I would say, the family or caregiver is the most important team members and oftentimes the forgotten team members. And we have 35 modules of videos and handouts on there. And then I have my podcast, the Eating Disorder Trap podcast, which now drops every other Monday, just coming up on 5 years of it. And each episode's 15 to 25 minutes. I have all types of individuals on in our field, some not in the field, but have a lot of wisdom that I thought was important to be able to share. And I always like to kind of come in from my angle about disordered eating and or eating disorders. And it's on every platform where podcasts can be
I
found.
love it. I love it. And we're definitely going to have you back on to talk
Thank you.
more because you and I are really aligned in the way that we approach eating disorders and disordered eating. And it's so lovely to have a kindred spirit in the same city. I love this. And we will certainly have to meet up in person
I'm
sometime
sure.
soon. But I'm
Definitely.
so grateful for your wisdom. You are really at the top of your field, and it is such an honor to have you on this podcast. So thank you so much for joining me.
I appreciate the invitation. Thank you, Supatra.
Yay. And thank you, everyone, for joining me on the ANEW Insight Podcast. I'm really looking forward to my next exciting interview, and I hope you join me next time. Thanks for tuning into the ANEW Insight Podcast. Please remember, the contents shared on this podcast is for entertainment purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. You can find us anywhere podcasts are streaming, on YouTube at my.anew.insight and at anew-insight.com under the ANEW Insight Podcast tab. And follow us on our socials at my.anew.insight on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads for more updates. Tune in next time and evolve with us.